Early spring greetings from Canadian Mennonite University. Now, there's always more than one thing going on. You know, this is the time of year when for students, well, it's kind of really late nights and really early mornings. You know, next week on March 27th, the library is open till 2 a.m. and people are even allowed to bring food into the library. I feel really old because I don't get that. But anyway, that is what's going on. The next thing that's going on, of course, is that we're dealing with a really troubling, turbulent time. And in such a time as this, as we try to adapt and understand and find our way, we also need to be telling counter stories of what's going on, the stories that give us hope and inspire us and find ways that trust and a common love of good continue to exist. And so that's the story we're here to tell today, as I'm joined in this interview with some wonderful people from CMU Athletics. So I'll introduce them one at a time, and I'm starting with Joel Hepner. Now, Joel is part of our men's volleyball team, and this year an interesting thing happened in that this small university in a small province went to nationals, and their first game went out and won against the top-rated team in the country. So Joel, tell us a little bit about the success of the season and just what was going on with that for you.
We came in unranked to nationals. We made it in on a wild card spot. Nobody was expecting us to beat the number 4 ranked team in the country, who also got to the CCAA MVP just the night before our game. And then, we came out. We were super fired up. The other team, I think, took their positioning for granted, and we came out with a win that nobody was expecting.
And way to go. I'm sure you had a great time doing that.
Oh, absolutely.
And a great time. Thanks for being part of that. And what's your position and so on the team?
I'm a 4th-year right side. I am the academic captain for the team. So I make sure that everybody goes to class and does their homework.
Okay, well, that's great. And knowing we have academic captains on the team, one of the great things that we have around here is actually this sensibility of scholar athletes. And so I'm going to invite Rachel Bartel to tell us a little bit about that. And so Rachel is one of these scholar athletes, and she comes from women's volleyball. And scholar athletes is something that means you're on a varsity team and that you're at an outstanding GPA, that means grade point average. What's interesting is that within the country, CMU has the highest proportion and some years even the highest number of scholar athletes in the league. So Rachel, tell us a little bit about what it means to be a scholar athlete.
Yeah, I think part of being an athlete at CMU is about the community that you're given. With joining a team, it's more you are given a group of friends and you have that community around you, and that extends beyond the court and the gym, but it also extends into the classroom. We prioritize our friendships and our relationships, and in classes, this is something that you can lean on, and seeing your friends in the classes, asking for help, working together, finding ways to succeed in the classroom and on the court is something that I have found has been beneficial to being an athlete here at CMU.
Well, thanks so much, Rachel. And I think one of the things that we're noticing in this era is that at some places there's trouble with students actually showing up for class in universities. And so one of the things that CMU is actually holding on to, and I bet athletes are a big part of this, is that you show up for practices and you actually show up for classes. And both of those factors are huge in terms of success overall. So thanks so much for being part of that. So speaking of the connection between classroom and what goes on the court, now move over to basketball, and here's Nefemi Batamosi. And one of the remarkable things about basketball this year is that women's basketball won not only one, but 2 championships in both of the leagues that they're part of. So Nefemi's going to tell us a little bit about that, and also something on what it means to connect your learning on the court and in the classroom or just the rest of life.
Before I start, I am a 4th year It's my final year playing for the CMU women's basketball team. And I'm also co-captain with my partner here, Brianna. And it is just such a pleasure to play for a team that works hard and puts it all on the court. When you think about it, basketball is just throwing an orange ball through a hoop, right? But it's more than that. It's more about the teamwork and the resiliency and the confidence that it's shown me as a person. And it's allowed me to translate that to other parts of my life. You know, I saw a statistic the other day that 94% of girls in sports are actually in executive, like 94% of girls in executive positions played sports and were female athletes. And I really hold that near to my chest. And I think my team is a very good example of that, of just how we're able to translate that resilience on the court to other parts of our lives.
Wow, and that's now, and really look forward to what that's going to mean your whole lives long, whether or not you keep playing basketball your whole life. So that's great. Well, here's Brianna, also Brianna Ehrmantraut, also from women's basketball. And, you know, I mentioned something before about counter stories. And one of the remarkable counter stories in this time of immediate trouble and concern and turmoil and so on is that what we do with CMU athletics, which is represented in the uniforms actually, is telling out much longer, life-giving stories that draw on the wisdom of ancient traditions and bring them forward in real living ways. So these uniforms have this wonderful expression of living into treaty as Treaty 1 uniforms, and with the saying, as long as the sun shines and the grass grows and the rivers flow. And at the same time, and as you'll see here on Nefemi's on a jacket here, we've got the love the dove of CMU. And so we've got these two expressions, love the dove, of course, coming from the symbol of God reconciling all things through this spirit of flame and the dove of peace. And so bringing these together with athletics through the uniforms and so on, what does this mean for you, Brianna?
Well, I am incredibly proud to have been a part of such an important historical event in CMU athletics. For the last 3 years, we have honored living, studying, and playing on Treaty 1 territory. So having the words Treaty 1 on our jerseys not only allows us to represent our homeland, but also to promote the opportunity for athletes to understand what it means to live in treaty. CMU has taken steps to acknowledge the history of our nation, but I do think it is important to for the movement of reconciliation to educate both athletes and coaches on what treaty means and how to live by it both on and off the court. I am a proud Métis woman, and I am still on my journey to understand the gaps in my understanding of my culture. But for an athlete to live in treaty would mean to mirror the sacred agreement between the Crown and Indigenous peoples that promises partnership and movement towards reconciliation. So treating our teammates and our opposing teams with love and respect is important, and that would not only reflect our motto of loving the dove, but also living into treaty.
Yeah, well, thanks so much. And what a beautiful way to say it, as represented in how beautiful these uniforms are, with both the imagery and the artwork and the expression and so on. And I'm going to invite Russ Willems, Director of Athletics, to make a few more comments, because he's the one that was behind getting these Treaty 1 uniforms going and just expressing this with the as long as the sun shines and the grass grows and the rivers flow, and love the dove over the time. So you love athletics, and you also love this deep wisdom that we're trying to be challenged by and learn from and bring together in ways that honor and respect and change us. So thanks for that, Russ. And just give a sense of how that has meaning for you, both in the intensity of sport and also how that extends into the rest of life.
It's interesting to look back on the process when the concept came forward, what was probably 5 years ago now, as we were in the process of deciding we're going to get new uniforms next year. How can we make them special, and how can we make them meaningful in a way that's not just I like the way it looks, but how can it impact society? How can it impact our student athletes? How can it impact our guests that come to watch? So it's interesting to see that process. It's humbling and exciting to hear the impact that it's had as a concept, and all the people we've been able to bring into the CMU community and us into community with them through relationships with Treaty One and this whole process 5 years ago now since that started. I'm excited through the whole process of what's come out of an idea.
Well, thanks so much for that. And for those of you who haven't often found your way to the Lowen Athletic Center, it's time to come to a game. It's exciting. There's lots of amazing people here who come together to cheer on and to learn things together. So to all of you who are part of CMU, firstly, thanks for our athletes here today and just the wonderful learning that they represent. And to all of you, may God bless you, keep you, and give you peace. I love the dove, as we say. Thanks.
Miigwech.